Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Returnal. I played it on the PS5 because, you know, exclusive. So you play as Celine, who is chasing through space a signal she calls the White Shadow, and it leads her to a mysterious planet. The planet is called Atropos, and well, you know how this goes. Shit went sideways! Her ship crashes and she wakes up, and then you begin your adventure, and then you die, and then it loops, because that is part of the story. Which I think is really cool because, you know, gameplay mechanic tied into story. I think that's a really neat way of doing it in this situation. It's this weird time loop thing, and they do some cool stuff with it, like you finding recordings of your previous self, and then there's some other weird elements going on. There's a lot of just interesting mystery shit going on, and I will say it's cool and you do want to know more, but I won't necessarily say I was truly in love with the story. I was, though, curious of where it was going. Now let's get into the audio, which first off, the voiceover work I think is very well done, but even more important than the voiceover work are the sound effects. The sound effects for the different weapons, for the crash, for, you know, the world you're on, the different zones, and all of that I think are really, really well done. I was actually really impressed with those. They did a phenomenal job drawing me into the game. Now as for the soundtrack, I am going to say it's not necessarily utterly forgettable, but it's also not something that I'm like, I need this soundtrack in my life. It does, though, work very well to go along with the game and what you're doing. But let's get into the gameplay mechanics and whatnot, and this is a roguelike third-person action shooter, or as I like to call it, a live-die-repeat simulator. And it really is. You basically get a pistol, and that is the one weapon that will follow you through each playthrough. And I have seen a lot of complaints about, like, the runs being very long or too long, and I'm like, I kind of enjoy that. Because for me, a lot of roguelikes, they begin to piss me off, like Hotline Miami, when it's just boom, 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 boom. Whereas this, you get to go around and you do get to explore more, and while exploring is very dangerous, there are often benefits to it as well for increasing your character's abilities, your power, your weapons, just all of that. So I think that is actually cool, and I personally like it. I think it works in the favor of the game. Now, I mentioned you have your handgun, and I will say one interesting thing is every time you die, you respawn, and it may have new abilities this time. Not necessarily more powerful, but just different abilities, because all the weapons in this game have alternate fires. And a lot of them have, like, unique qualities, like some will eventually give you homing missiles, some will give you a shield, etc. But there are more guns than that. There are a couple of, like, automatic rifles. There is a shotgun. I gotta say, my favorite was the carbine. I really liked it because this game does do a bit of an auto lock for you, and I felt that it worked best with that weapon. And I guess it's not full auto lock, but that gun it works best with, and you do notice it more with that weapon, and I liked that. There were certain alternate fires that I liked more than others, and you'll find that too, that, you know, you'll find this one gun, and maybe you like the way this one gun works, but oh, that alternate fire on it really sucks, and you may end up getting yourself killed trying to find the version you want. There are a lot of different upgrades you can find while you explore, as I mentioned, but if you die, you will lose them, so there is very much a risk-reward scenario going on. And obviously, the longer runs you do, the higher chance you have to die, but I think they did it well. I personally enjoyed the way they were doing it. And before I forget to mention it, one thing that they do to keep each run a little more unique is that the world itself is made up of different zones, but inside of each of those zones, they're made up of different components. I guess if you were to map it out, there would be different components, and the way those components are organized in each run is different and unique. So I really enjoyed that. It mixes up the map of the zone every time you die and come back. Now let's get into the controls, which, this being on the PS5, I'm going to say first off, I like the controls overall. I like the way they are mapped. I think they are very responsive. I think the camera and movement is really good, but let's get into the important part of the PS5 controls, And that's the whole haptic shit they've got going on, and this game really leans into it. When it comes to like that vibrating feature that you're used to, they really use it even better and in subtle ways to like act like rain and just, you know, help you feel like you are more in the environment, which I think is neat. But I think the coolest feature they did is with the left trigger. You hold it down, you reach a wall, and that is your aim down sight, which I will tell you I rarely used. But if you hold it down all the way, going past that wall, you will trigger the alternate fire. And I just think that was a really cool way of doing that. Rather than having to hold down some other button while you're trying to aim. And, you know, it just makes it simpler. And I think that's actually a really neat feature in this game. It doesn't feel quite as gimmicky as it could. But let's get into the visuals, and this is the first game I am playing on the PS5 that really just exemplifies what the PS5 is capable of. This is that first next-gen game where I'm sitting there going, okay, I want to see more of what is to come visually. The amount of detail in your character in the cutscenes is just really, really impressive. I was honestly kind of shocked at how good it looked. But then you get into the world itself and all the different effects and the creatures, the fauna, just all of it is really well done. The amount of detail there, the amount of effects going on with your weapons, with the creatures attacking you, just all of it is really impressive. But then you have different zones, which I found really interesting, and there is lore going along with it that I really enjoyed, and I like the different zones, and I just, you know, I want more. I just want more. And not just necessarily visually of this game, but, you know, I want to see where it's going, and I think that's really cool that Returnal got me more interested in what the PS5 is going to be capable of. The amount of detail there is just really impressive, and anyone who knows me knows I love just large amounts of detail, especially in these games that are trying to be more hyper-realistic, even though it's totally sci-fi. I just love that from a visual standpoint. So to wrap this up, I've got to say, Returnal really, really impressed me. I will say, you know, $70 is a pretty steep price, and I don't know if every game for the PS5 will be worth that, and I really honestly hope that comes down in price, but I gotta say, I didn't mind paying it now that I've played Returnal. At the time, it was a little painful, but having played Returnal, I'm like, oh, this was actually worth it. So yeah, I'm gonna say, if you were able to get a PS5, Returnal is absolutely worth investing in. I really enjoyed it. Okay, so in the comments down below, why don't you tell me what is your favorite time loop movie? Because, you know, why not? I mean, for me, it's probably Live, Die, Repeat. A lot of people are probably gonna go Groundhog Day. Fair enough. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share and subscribe. Have a good one. They did a phenomenal job drawing me out of the